Thank you for checking this video out. It seems like such a long time since I've sat in the chair and recorded one of these, but it's just because life's got in the way, and every time I sit down the phone rings, the computer goes off, I'm working on this, I'm working on that, and I know I promised that I'd be more consistent. So today I'm sticking to that promise. I've turned the phone off, turned the computer off, I've sat down, and we're going to talk about something that's a heated and debated topic on social media and magic forums, whether it's better to learn from magic books, mentalism books, or videos. But before we get into that, as always, I like to play an interactive game with you, the viewer at home. So if you want to be part of this experiment, it's easy. If you're sat down, sit with your feet flat on the floor. If you're stood up, ignore everything else around you and just listen to the sound of my voice. In a moment, I'm going to be transmitting a relevant piece of information into your head, and that's going to help you work something out about me. This is a piece of information that most of you won't know, and for those of you that do, well, you could play anyway and just put in the comments you got it right. So I want you to think of the first colour that pops into your mind. Lock that colour in, don't change your mind. It's got to be instinctive. Whatever the first colour is that you went for, that's what you've got to stick with. So if you went for one and then change your mind, go back to that initial colour. In a second, I'm going to overlay on the screen a series of star signs and the colours that best represent those signs. And all you've got to do is look at the colour you're thinking of, and right next to it will be a star sign, and think of whatever that star sign is. So I'm overlaying it on the screen now. Welcome back. You should now be thinking of a colour and a star sign. I want you to ignore the colour for a few seconds. We'll get into the relevance of that later down the line. For now, you have one star sign inside your head, and it'd be incredible if the star sign you're thinking of is my star sign. Now, if you know me, you know how passionate I am about astrological mentalism. So if you've managed to do this, you can post in the comments and let me know. And also, if you didn't get this, let me know in the comments. I'm actually a Scorpio. Did you pick up on that? Let me know below. So as I said, the purpose of today's video is about books versus videos. And I'm a massive, massive fan of both of those mediums. And I think that I try to find an equilibrium between the two. And I know that there's people watching this that are saying to themselves, well, I can't read books because I can't retain the information that's inside those books. So firstly, I want to start the gate by giving you a little piece of gold that's going to enable you to get into those old books and retain them. And you probably think I've tried everything and nothing works, but trust me, this works. Take your mobile phone, put it on the side, turn it so the camera's facing you, and press record. That's a motorbike going past, a very loud one. And all you've got to do is you've got to record yourself reading. So literally just record a video of you reading. Don't worry about the camera, don't read to the camera, just read. And then what you do is you watch the video back. And now because you're watching the video back, it's not like reading a book, you're learning from a video. You're learning from the audiological aspects of the video, which should help you retain the information. Because some of us are visual thinkers and we're not analytical thinkers, right? But I want to go off on a little bit of a tangent before I tell you what my preferred option is. Like I said, I try to find an equilibrium, but I do have a preferred medium. And it's about something that I've become recently obsessed with. And I've recently become obsessed with watching how films are made and how videos are made. And I've also become obsessed with Eastern storytelling, the mysticism behind Eastern storytelling. And I was watching the making of A Nightmare on Elm Street. So if you haven't seen A Nightmare on Elm Street, it's essentially a video about a serial killer that kills people in their dreams. It's a very dark horror film about Freddy Krueger, but it's a great series nonetheless. And the making of the practical effects on there was so incredible that it actually lured me back to watching my favourite in the series, which is Freddy 3, which is the Dream Warriors. And I was watching one bit of the Dream Warriors, and there was this scene where Nancy's walking into this mental hospital, and she goes into this mental hospital and she gets to meet the patients for the very first time. And one of these patients is sat on the bed and he's carving out of Play-Doh, plasticine, little dolls. And she says, oh, you know, what are these little dolls? And he looks up and he says, oh, the hospital won't allow me to have wood because I'd like to carve some out of wood, but they're scared if they give me a knife, I'm gonna off myself. It's this awkward, jokey little moment that's put in there. And what I found brilliant about it is later on down the line, like these plasticine models are hung on a wall and one of them actually morphs into Freddy Krueger. And they needed to introduce that scene of this plasticine mold turning into Freddy so that Freddy could then take this person's life in his dreams. But what was so incredible about the way that they introduced it is they introduced it in a moment that you're going to remember, but it doesn't stand out as a relevant moment. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, why the hell is he telling us this and what relevance does it have to magic and mentalism? I think that it's taught me a lot in that one video about predictions. And I'm not going to give you all the answers, but think about what I'm saying here. With a prediction, you take it out and it's either got a question mark on it or it says prediction, or you say this is a prediction about things that are going to happen in the future. And just recently, if you look at the clairvoyant video, that's exactly what I did, right? And it leads people to know where the journey's heading to. So basically everybody now knows that this entire effect leads to this one envelope. So they know where the end is. And because they know where the end is, if they have any belief in the fact that you can do what you say you're doing, then the prediction becomes redundant. Which were really interesting for me because I thought, well, they so brilliantly fed this scene in to introduce the setup to this scene later on in such a marvellous way that it didn't stand out. So what it's got me thinking is, imagine being able to bring a prediction into a performing scenario, and then that prediction then comes full circle when it's relevant and you get twice as big a hit now. So it means you're getting twice as much punch out of your predictions. And that were inspired by watching Freddy Krueger 3. And if you were doing that with playing cards, it might be something as simple as saying, oh, I'm just going to get rid of the jokers, and you drop them off to the side. Now, then you could make a little joke, you know, why do they put these in a deck anyway? And nobody ever uses them. And you drop them in front of the person. And if you're doing something with cards, imagine putting the prediction in between the jokers and it gets dropped down. Now, when you point back to the jokers, they remember the little joke that you made earlier on and the fact that these have been a distance away from you. It kicks them, it hits them out of the left field. And so you get a bigger reaction, right? And as I say, I'm not going to give you all the ways I'm thinking about using this because I'd like to sit on this for a bit before I share anything. But it's food for thought for you guys to go away and think to yourself, oh yeah, well, maybe it's better to not introduce a prediction like this. Maybe it's better to let it sit in the mix and introduce it in a really casual way that doesn't seem like it's going to be relevant, but later when it is relevant, you remember the callback to the moment, and the callback's the key phrase there. And things like that have happened to me in books outside of mentalism and magic. Now I'm going to share with you a secret. This is a free trick for watching this video and getting through to this point. I invented a trick. I'll tell you the trick first and I'll tell you where it comes from. And it was called the Bob Principle. And it was actually named the Bob Principle because I asked Michael Murray what he thinks I should call it, and he just plucked the first thing that came into his head, and that's it, right? And the effect is this. Now you can use this in many, many, many different ways, but I'm going to share with you an easy way that you can instantly go out and start doing. So let's imagine that you force a playing card. Now this doesn't have to be playing cards, and if you're a mentalist and groaning at this, think about the ways you'd use this. You force a playing card, and let's say it's the 8 of clubs. You say, show that to everybody else. And then just as they finish showing it, you say, in fact, you know what, put it back in, choose another one. Choose a different playing card and keep it to yourself. Forget that for a second. I just want you to know this. Maybe you're thinking they're helping me in some way. So now to everybody else, what happens is the 8 of clubs gets canned and cancelled and it disappears into the ether, goes. Whereas the second playing card's the physical thing that they're keeping to themselves and they've looked at. What that means is before I reveal that playing card, I could give that person a reading and I could say, you know, I think this, and this. I think this, and you're just reading them, saying whatever you want. But when it comes to a moment now, you want to get a free hit. You go, there's something that's just popped into my head and I'm going to whisper this to you because I don't know what it means. I don't know if it has a particular relevance, but I know it's a secret that you've not said out loud. You've never said anything about this. Let me see if you know what this means. And then they lean in and I go, you picked the 8 of clubs first. So I say you picked the 8 of clubs first. Now this person reacts. And to everybody else, this is what they see. Now I don't know what this is. I'm seeing a secret that you've kept to yourself. You never said out loud. and it's something that you've stored away in the back of your head, and you've sort of pushed it right into the back of your mind. This is where it is. And now it looks like you've revealed this amazing secret, like this incredible secret that nobody could know. And then you can move on to revealing the other playing card however you want. And you could say, oh, the other secrets that I saw will keep between me and you, and you can pinky promise or shake on it or whatever. But it allows you now to make it seem like you could reveal anything. If you wanted to make it seem like a pin code, let's say we use that 8 of clubs again and they've seen that first. If you lean in and whisper to the person, you know that first playing card that you picked, and they nod, and you say, if I could tell you, if that were a number card and I could tell you that 4 times, I'd only have to do that to get your pin code, right? And they nod, and it'd show you how easy it is. So then I lean out and go, just concentrate. Now I lean back in and I snap and I go, it was the 8 of clubs. And on that 4th snap, they react. And then I lean out and go, that shows you how easy it is to get a pin code. Now the person in their head goes, well, yeah, if it had just done that 4 times, it'd have been so easy. Yeah. So he just goes, yeah, or she goes, yes. So now to everybody else at the table, oh, they've seen this. I'm going to try to tell you your pin code. You lean in, whisper, lean out, look at me. In fact, come here. Reaction. So it looks like you've nailed a pin code. And that were all for forcing a playing card. Now that came from Enid Blyton's The Enchanted Wood, which is a brilliant series of books about a series of siblings that find a tree called the Faraway Tree, and they go up to the top of this tree and end up in this secret land somewhere. And it's a children's book. But the reason that came about is because there's a bit at the start of the book, just as they're finding and discovering this enchanted wood, that they jump over this little ditch and they stand there and they're looking at this wood, and it says that the trees are just darker than any other trees they've ever seen. And they can hear the noises, and it says wisha, 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 which is the noises that the noises that are mentioned inside the book, onomatopoeic sound. And they then say it's like they're speaking their own language, and nobody else can understand it but them. And I read that one line in a book, and I went, wow, it's like they're speaking their own language and nobody else can understand it. Wouldn't it be great if I could whisper something to somebody that they'd understand as a language between me and them, but everybody else would hear it and see it as something different? And that's where the idea of the Bob principle came from. And those sources that I just mentioned are not related in any way, shape or form to magic, right? And just to quickly gild the lily and finish the point about the prediction I mentioned earlier, we have this false idea in magic and mentalism that something needs to be brought to a successful conclusion for it to be impressive. But unfortunately that's wrong. From my experience, what I found is that the journey getting there, if that's the impressive bit, the conclusion never has to happen. And in your head you might be saying, well, what does that mean? Well, let's take a simple coin vanish, right? So you've got a coin, you're about to take it, and now it's going to vanish. When it vanishes, everybody's there going, where the hell did it just go? And almost imagine them acting like a dog. You know, when you pretend to throw a ball and you hide it behind your back and the dog runs and it's looking around everywhere. And then when it comes back and you go, it's there, the dog then calms down and it waits again for you to throw it again. And it becomes this little game that the moment the ball comes back, any intrigue that were created in the moment of it going disappears. Now that doesn't mean that the dog's not going to continually chase the ball, but human beings, they lose their patience a lot quicker than a dog, or a lot of human beings lose their patience a lot quicker than a dog. So imagine disappearing the coin and then you make it reappear. And then you take the coin and you say, is there any destination that you are going to visit in the next 5 years that's on your bucket list, somewhere you'd love to go? And they say, yeah, and they tell you the place and you go, watch. Now you make the coin vanish. And you tell them that it's going to reappear in the place that they're going to visit. And all they've got to do is keep their eyes out for it, and you never bring it back. If they truly believe in you, when they go away, they're going to say, you know, you made a coin disappear and reappear in Antigua or wherever. And the bit of the vanish is the conclusion as opposed to bringing it back. The bringing it back is not as powerful as making it disappear and transpose somewhere else. And the true brilliance is this, is that if they've seen you disappear stuff and appear it and read their mind and do this and do that, then in their heads, if they truly believe anything's possible, so what's more impressive? disappearing it and making it reappear in your hand, or disappearing it and making it disappear and reappear somewhere else in the world. And so it sometimes shows you that the words that you express on the conclusion of an effect are often more brilliant, creative and impossible than the revelation of bringing the coin back. And I learnt that predictions sometimes fall flat because of that. So now I've gone off on a little tangent. My advice is watch as many documentaries as you can, read as many books about things that are not related to magic or mentalism. Read as much about facts and trivia, because facts and trivia, they open up things that inspire you. Like I read something about how when a telephone had its wire, human beings were free. And the moment it lost its wire, humans were not. And I thought, what an interesting quote, this idea that when the phone were tethered down with a cable, everybody were free. And then the moment that cable were cut and it became portable, we now live on our phones. And that's the reason that I not uploaded videos in a long time, right? So it proof's in the pudding. But these sources outside of magic and mentalism, you might hear one word or phrase that just really makes you think. Like, for example, did you know that the translation, or the closest translation of karaoke, is empty orchestra? How beautiful is that? And these little stories and elements that exist outside magic and mentalism in book and video form, you can take things from them. I mean, the best directors in the world are not in magic, they're in film. The best writers in the world are not in magic, they're in literature. So these creators, they're at the pinnacle of the game and they're paid a lot of money. And looking at the formulas of the things that these people create will make your magic and mentalism much better. It'll take it to that next level. And so now on to the magic and mentalism book debate. I prefer books. And for anybody that likes videos, don't be disheartened. But there's a reason that I prefer books. There's a wonderful website called Librarycom. That's L-Y-B, not L-I-B. So it's library.com. And you can go on there and it's an official website. It's run by Chris Wasuba. I hope I pronounce his name right. But he sells all the classic traditional books. And they're only a few dollars. And I get to read and see things that I've never been privy to, from artists that I've never heard of. And I can take the risk of spending a couple of dollars or a few dollars here and there and not having any expectation. Now, those books have been life-changing. When I picked up Anneman's books, the reason I think I hold such an affiliation with literature is that I read Practical Mental Effects and it changed my life. You know, it completely changed the way that I thought about things. And I don't know why, I mean, we've become sort of connected with certain performers and certain creators, and Anneman's the performer and creator that I connected to. So if you've not read Practical Mental Magic or Practical Mental Effects, which it was initially called, do yourself a favour and go and find it. Now, a lot of the ideas in there, yes, they're outdated, but what I do is that I'm a problem solver. You're problem solvers. Don't see yourself as a mentalist. Don't see yourself as a magician or a creator. See yourself as a problem solver. And there's a reason that I'm expressing that to you, because when you read these books, what you'll do is you'll go, what's the problem with it and how do I fix it? So now every single book that you ever buy, every video you ever buy will have value. It might be one sentence. It might be you looking at an idea and fixing what's wrong with it so it works. And also it tricks your brain into getting quicker, and your neurological pathways will expand, and it'll enable you to create better, and it'll enable you to perform better. And so I really prefer books, because books, for me, I can delve so far into the past, long before the format of video ever existed, and I can see in my head. I mean, I'm in a very lucky position to be able to bring these things to life inside my mind. Now, not everybody can do that. So like I said to you earlier on, record yourself and listen to it back. Close your eyes when you're listening to yourself say it. If you don't like the sound of your own voice, ask one of your friends to read it. Close your eyes and listen to it, and just watch the imagery pop inside your head. And you have your own personal cinema inside here that will enable you to look at things you didn't think were possible to look at before. Now, I understand why people like video, because you can see certain angles and there's things that get lost in translation. I've had that happen to me. I have to now preface when I'm writing something that on paper this reads like a lot, but it's over in a few seconds. I have to put that because when I'm taking 2 pages to explain something and you're reading it, and the time it takes to actually do it is 3 seconds, there's all that happening in this amount of time. It's very easy when it's a video to see that and to see all the different angles. But the honest answer is this, is that these people that are spending their time debating on videos and books are missing the real important message. And the real important message is this: read and watch as much as possible. Take everything in. I'm constantly watching what's coming out. I'm constantly reading. I'm constantly watching videos. You know, I'll be sat and I've got 2 minutes where I'm driving and I'll put a video on, I'll listen to it. I won't watch it because I'm driving, but I'll listen to it. You know, if I'm sat and I'm laid down before bed, I always try to read a different book every single day. And so don't entertain these arguments about books and videos. Entertain all of it. Entertain absolutely everything. And think to yourself, okay, how can I fix the problem that lies inside this book? How can I fix the problem with this routine on this video? How can I adapt it to suit me? And the moment you can start doing that, and the moment that you ignore the arguments and the debates, and you just take all of that and you make it your own, you'll find that sometimes you change the method completely. And guess what? If you change the method completely, it's yours. It's your effect. If you change the presentation and the method, it's your effect. If you change it to suit your character, you can go out and you can rock that when you're in performance. And people are going to look at you and think, wow. And that's because you've taken what you've read or what you've watched and you've given it an interesting spin. And this is the last thing that I'm going to share because I wanted to round this off with the positive note of everything is brilliant and there's no right or wrong answer to that question. I just don't want you to entertain those debates. Is that the wonderful thing about reading outside of magic and mentalism is there's so many brilliant stories. There's so many brilliant interviews, there's so many brilliant documentaries, and there's so many brilliant Eastern stories that it's mind-blowing. And I want to leave by sharing with you one that I read recently that I thought were incredible. And it was just such a nice story. It was almost like an Eastern version of Romeo and Juliet. Now, I'm not going to get into the semantics of the detail, but I thought what were really brilliant is that these two families from different classes, they weren't allowed to love. Their heart were telling them one thing, but the heads of their families were telling them another. And because in Eastern society it was so ingrained into you in the past to listen to your parents, that they had to, against what their heart were telling them, not love each other. And one of the families had a sorcerer, and they got this sorcerer to cast a great waterfall between the two islands where this couple lived, and it was a waterfall that had no top. So this couple could never see each other, they could never meet each other again. But because their love was so strong, it went out into the ether and the animals felt it. So much so that once a year, the birds would all collect together and create this beautiful bridge that went over the top of the waterfall so the couple could secretly climb the bridge of birds and meet in the middle for one longing embrace every 12 months. And I think stuff like that's really incredible and the story's really beautiful. Start watching things like Rashomon, and I recently watched Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and when you look at Jen, you know, the woman in the story that's born into this rich background, she's pulled in all directions from everybody. Her family are telling her she's got to marry this one person. The person that she loves is saying you've got to come to the desert. Then she's got her master Jade who's telling her you must be evil and nefarious and do this. And then she's got a master that wants to train her to go over to a certain set of mountains to train. And then somebody else is telling her to do this. And she's pulled in all directions, and she has been since such a young age that when it comes to the end of the film, she remembers a story about a young man that jumped from the top of the mountains and the god made his wish come true about making his family well again because they were ill. And she stands on the top of this mountain and she turns to the person that she loves but she knows she can't be with because he wants to take her away, And she says to him, what would you wish if you could wish anything? And he says that me and you would be back in the desert. And she looks out over the mountain for a second and she just jumps over the side. And for the first time in her life, she was completely free. She wasn't being pulled in any direction. She was just riding the current. And I just thought the ending was so incredible and everything else that I implore you to look into these Eastern stories and to look into these mythical stories. I'm reading Brothers Grimm at the moment. Look into that and bring this stuff into your magic and mentalism. And I really look forward to seeing what it is that you guys bring into the magic and mentalism world. And I just want you to know that I am watching, I am listening. And if I've not got back to your emails or your messages, it's not because I'm being ignorant. It's really, really because life's just got so chaotic. So yeah, until next time, take care, talk soon.